Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. This webinar is being presented by Clean Energy Group, and the topic for today's webinar is Community-Led Energy Resilience, Lessons from the Clean Energy Incentive Navigator. And we have an excellent panel of guest speakers with us today, but before I pass it over to them, I'd like to go over a couple of webinar logistics. All attendees are in, oops, all attendees are in listen-only mode, so your webcam and microphone are disabled. The chat function is also disabled, so if you would like to submit questions and comments, you can do so via the Q&A panel. We will be saving about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of the presentations to go over audience questions. So if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them throughout the presentation, and then we will get to them at the end of the presentations. Automated captions are also available. Speaker bios will be made available in the chat as the speakers are being introduced. And finally, this webinar is being recorded. We will email you a webinar recording within 48 hours, and it will also be posted on CEG's website at cleanegroup.org/webinars. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to our host for today, my colleague, Anna Adamsson.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zareen. As Zareen said, this is a presentation of Clean Energy Group. We're a nationwide nonprofit with the mission of ensuring that affordable, reliable, clean energy is available for everyone. We have a few focus areas that we've included on the slide here. You're welcome to go to our website and learn more about them. Next slide, please. This specific initiative is a part of the Resilient Power Project. We focus on how solar and energy storage can build the foundation for energy resilient communities. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, we launched the Clean Energy Incentive Navigator program. We provided funding for 6 organizations across the country to essentially build awareness about solar and battery storage technologies, as well as other sustainability initiatives folks can pursue. Navigator organizations serve as local knowledge hubs for, like I said, solar and battery storage technologies, and with a specific focus on funding opportunities, available incentives. Obviously, that looks a lot different this year than it did last year, so a lot of education and awareness building about that. There were 3 main stages to the Navigator program. Each of these hubs pursued a needs assessment at the beginning of the year that could look like one-on-one meetings with the community organizations, surveys, other ways of learning from their organization or from their community, what they already know about solar and storage, and what community members want to learn more about. Then in step 2, based on that needs assessment that they pursued this spring, they started developing resources tailored to the needs of their community about solar storage and other clean energy technologies. Each of our Navigator hubs are serving their region, which is usually their city or state, with specific resources for their area. And then lastly, our Navigator hubs have launched in the last couple of months. Each of these organizations have hosted a launch event for their community within the last month or two, which some of them will be sharing more about in the coming slides. So today's webinar is going through what each of these organizations did over the year, their accomplishments, and what they're looking forward to in 2026. Next slide, please. I'll introduce our great lineup of Navigator organizations and the folks representing them here today. First off, we have Garrison Davis, Director of Community Energy at Push Buffalo. I should say we're not going into in-depth speaker bios here today. We have a long and well-accomplished group of folks on the call, so we've decided to include all those speaker bios in a PDF that Zareen has just dropped in the chat. It will also be available on our website afterhand. So Garrison Davis, again, Director of Community Energy at Push Buffalo. Peter Drummond, Executive Director at Forward Together Wisconsin. Nick DeMarsh, Technical Assistance Director at Forward Together Wisconsin. Lynn Pinder and Kimberly Armstrong of Baltimore Green Justice Workers. Lynn is Director of Baltimore Green Jobs Academy, and Kimberly is the Director of Strategic Partnerships. Maya Bornstein, Program Manager at Green Building United. LeBaron Leonard Palmer, who is the Director of Sustainable Building Strategies at Green Building United. Isabel Coupe, Program Manager, again, at Green Building United. Myself, I will be moderating. And then at the end, we have Mary Pettigrew, Resilience Hub Team Leader at Empower Our Future. We also have 2 other folks from Empower Our Future joining for the Q&A, Scott and Jim. And we'll add their bios after the fact as well. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Garrison from Push Buffalo. They're based out of Buffalo, New York, and they just launched their new webpage and resources this last week. So lots of exciting news happening over there. Over to you, Garrison. And while we're
Awesome.
transitioning slides, I'll just remind folks to put your questions in the Q&A. Sorry, go ahead, Garrison.
No problem. Well, thank you for the introduction, Anna, and welcome everyone today to our panel of presenters. Um, as was mentioned, my name is Garrison Davis. I am the Director of Community Energy at Push Buffalo. And Push Buffalo is an organization working primarily on the west side of Buffalo, but rapidly expanding to provide quality housing to the residents of, well, quality and affordable housing to the residents of Buffalo, New York. And so within Push Buffalo, there's Push Green, which is my department. Push Green manages the Western New York Energy Hub. And with the Western New York Energy Hub is a collection of various stakeholders across Western New York, which comes together in order to conduct outreach and essentially educate people within Erie, Niagara County, Allegheny County, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties. Um, Educate them around clean energy options as well as programs that the state offers, which can help people become weatherized. And we do this through our team of energy advisors, which really heads up that work. This is really aligned very perfectly with everything that the Clean Energy Navigator provided for us. And ultimately, we found an opportunity to sort of bring it back full circle with everything that we learned with the Navigator. When it came to the Navigator, our first milestone, our first task was to really get a better understanding of what our community was going through and sort of get a true profile of some of the energy issues that our community was facing. We ended up doing this through a community survey, which we conducted over roughly 3 weeks. Within those 3 weeks, we surveyed around 53 people located in all five of the previously mentioned counties. The subject of our survey was mostly around energy efficiency, thinking about energy bills, and as well as how people react and ultimately survive during extreme weather events when they might not have access to energy, which can keep their excuse me. Um, so during this survey, we asked a series of questions in order to sort of get some responses from people and really get a true profile of exactly what people are facing. One of the questions we asked centered around like the percentage of people who paid less than $1,000 for rent, and what we found was that 75% of the people we spoke to paid less than $1,000. In addition to that, despite paying so little in rent due to like a reduced income and living in a low income community, people were still paying over 57% of respondents paid more than $100 for their electric bill on a regular basis. And so, we tried to ask broad questions around people's general income in order to understand their status within the broader LMI scope. Understanding our community, the majority of the people in our community are LMI focused. And so with this in mind, learning that over half of our respondents paid more than $100 in utilities, that means that there's an increased chance for a high energy burden. And ultimately that energy burden, meaning that a larger proportion of their income is going towards their electric bill. Obviously, this means that you know uh, that means that's money that they can't spend on food or other items. And so when we sort of asked people about these questions and we dug a little bit deeper, we asked them sort of how they've tried to curb their energy usage. And so 63% of respondents said that they've reduced the use of lights as well as climate control in order to reduce the cost that they pay for electric. And so with this, what we found through the Navigator was that this is helpful, right? And it's a good sort of like reflexive response, but it doesn't always get at the root cause of the problem. And we'll go into a little bit more about that in a bit. Additionally, when it comes to experiencing power outages, so 75% of people actually experience a power outage within the past several years. And then during that power outage, 45% of those people lost cooling and heating during that time. And so when considering this information, right, we wanted to think about sort of what would be the best way in order to get people um, to sort of think critically about the issues that they're facing, right? And so we came up with a couple of resources that we decided to put together and then ultimately share with our community. So one of the resources were two short form videos. So think like minute-long TikToks where we go through clean energy solutions as well as discuss some issues around energy efficiency. We also put together a one pager around those same topics and then a presentation which gave an overview of the energy system and energy grid, and then also broke down what everybody's clean energy options were uh, for their own life and sort of different ways that they could actually reduce their energy usage within their home. And so all of this is important because as I mentioned before, we had those 63% of people who reduced the lights and climate control, but ultimately that doesn't necessarily speak to the root cause. A lot of times, the root cause might be weatherization, right? Thinking about what we call Swiss cheese windows and doors. When you have wind blowing and you have cracks in your doors and your windows, which air can escape through, that's a huge place where people can lose money. Also, think about things as simple as light bulbs, right? The type of light bulb you use ultimately determining how much money you're spending on electricity. And so we want to kind of put together some resources that we're going to allow us to present some of these more simple solutions, but then also give people uh, an overview of our uh, energy grid as it exists today, and sort of why some other reasons might exist for the cost of energy going up. And so with that, in our presentation, we ended up presenting this slideshow in front of a number of members that we have as a launch. And so during this presentation, we had the opportunity to discuss the various ways that our grid is inefficient, right? Thinking about using non-renewable energy sources, but then also thinking about the fact that we're sending electricity over long distances, as well as the fact that uh, our utilities a lot of times are privately owned and profit driven, and so as a result those height rakes sometimes might be to improve infrastructure, but then other times it might be to turn a profit to their shareholders, placing those shareholders over stakeholders. And so the presentation lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, and we had some time for Q&A. And during that time, we were able to field questions, and then we were also able to loop it back around in order to direct people to our energy advisors who could then answer more questions about some of the different programs that we had available through NYSERDA and would help people become more energy efficient. And so with that, we also recorded the presentation. We aggregated all of this data and then created a landing page to explain the Clean Energy Navigator and put all these resources on. And like the following week after the presentation, we then unveiled all of our resources that we created one by one throughout the week with the launch of the Navigator landing page coming at the end of the week. And through that, we've since had a couple of conversations, not just with members about how they can become more energy efficient, but now we've also explored a couple different ideas within our community footprint, thinking about ways that we can build resiliency, and whether that comes from solar plus storage, or even building resiliency hubs, or just finding new ways to connect with people around energy efficiency. So we're really grateful for the opportunity to participate in the Clean Energy Navigator, and we found it really useful, and can't wait to take what we've learned and take it a step further. So thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Garrison. We will be moving on to Forward Together Wisconsin. We can bring those slides up. While we're doing this transition, I just wanted to say we put into the chat a web page that goes over the Clean Energy Incentive Navigator program in more depth. That's on Clean Energy Group's website. We also have a web page that's highlighting a lot of the resources that our Navigator partners created, gave short summaries of them, and then redirect you to their web pages where you can see the full resource. And then as folks are presenting, we'll drop the links into each organization's Navigator website, their own website. So you should have in your chat box the CEG websites with all the Navigator programs, more information about this initiative, the resources that folks created, and then now the link to Push Buffalo's Navigator webpage. Again, thanks so much, Garrison, and we'll be moving forward to Peter. I think you're starting off the presentation for Forward Together.
Thanks so much, Anna. Hi, everyone. I am Peter Drummond, Executive Director of Forward Together Wisconsin. We envision a world in which, and work to create a world in which public funds are invested equitably in communities fighting the climate crisis and to strengthen public institutions. Our mission is to ensure that public investments in Wisconsin are effective, efficient, and equitable. The Clean Energy Incentive Navigator program really fit our organization like a glove, so we were very excited to partner with CEG on this effort. A lot of the key implementation pieces of this project were taken up by our fantastic technical assistance director, Nick DeMarsh. So I'm excited to turn over the rest of the presentation to Nick to go over the finer details of the program. Nick, take it away. You're muted, Nick.
All right, let me try again. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I am the Technical Assistance Director with Forward Together Wisconsin. Excited to share the work we've done here in Wisconsin in partnership with CEG. So one of the things we did by assessing, the landscape of solar plus storage in Wisconsin was really we focused in on resilience hubs. I know that's something that Garrison and folks in Buffalo had worked on as well that he mentioned. So pictured there is from our story guide. More information about that story guide is in the chat. And this was a really compelling library that installed solar and battery storage. They were inspired to do so after a devastating flood that knocked out the community's power, and it also flooded the only gas station in town. So not only did that mean that residents couldn't drive, get out of town, they also, those that had backup generators, kind of, who they thought they were prepared for this flood, they also couldn't get gas to power their homes or businesses. So this really raised the profile of the need for solar plus battery storage in this community. If you all are familiar with Organic Valley, the cooperative dairy co-op, that's where Organic Valley is based. So small town, but you might be familiar or might have heard of it. So we really focused on two pieces of education with this work, which is to both inspire and to inform. This library highlights how important it is to have that inspiration, seeing that other communities can and have successfully implemented this technology. So in the deliberative process, when they were exploring installing solar plus battery storage on this public library, public officials required some convincing, and they actually highlighted a community in northern Wisconsin, the Bad River Tribe, that had also faced devastating floods. And the Bad River Tribe had installed solar plus battery storage following their flood several years prior to the implementation of this project in Lafarge. So it really goes to show how a part of what we found that's important to educate folks is to inspire, to be able to provide compelling stories. So we did create a story guide. In that story guide is this library, as well as the Bad River Tribe and a church that has installed a really great solar array. In addition to that, we also have other resources about funding, because obviously it's great to be inspired. People really can't do much without the funding to implement these projects. And the funding landscape can be challenging to navigate. So our website also has information about funding resources for folks to invest in these projects. Next slide, please. So this was a really fantastic event for Together Wisconsin. We host an annual convening in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This was our second annual, and so we were excited at that event to have a breakout session. So we had over 200 people in attendance at the event, and we had a really well-attended breakout session. Actually, Anna from CEG was able to join us for that breakout session. Pictured there is Anna on the left with speakers from Bad River, Lafarge, and Elevate, a national nonprofit that does work around solar plus battery storage. And that's Elizabeth from Elevate. So it was a really great event. It was a great opportunity to highlight in person the work that both Bad River and Lafarge have done to advance solar plus storage. Folks in the audience were able to ask questions both about how these communities navigated the challenges of getting their community leaders on board, as well as logistical challenges of using the technology. So we were really thrilled to host that event. Um, and like I said, it's great to be able to tell stories in person. Um, I think we can go to the next slide. So just want to highlight a few lessons learned from this experience. Um, as noted in the first bullet, there is some awareness about solar plus battery storage. Battery storage is a newer technology for a lot of people, and so there's still still it really varies from who we've engaged with, whether or not people are familiar with the technology, and once they are, understanding about how it works. So that education piece is definitely needed when it comes to battery storage, less so. Obviously, solar has been around for a while and is becoming increasingly common. Second bullet point, we find that energy resilience is a really important framing to get people to understand the value of solar plus battery storage. Um, as noted, both communities that installed these projects had been affected by really devastating floods. That's a concern across our state, as I'm sure it is across much of your communities. And this is a really helpful way to engage folks. As devastating as those floods are, that's what, planning, that's what preparation is for, is to uh, make folks aware that there are ways to equip our communities with the technology that can help people get through those times. Many of us want solar on our community buildings. Many of us want, to flip the lights and tap into solar. And the next step is what's going to make that action happen. And so it seems like people realizing that you might not be able to flip those lights in those moments when the power goes out, and that could be a really big driver for people to really think more critically about whether or not they want to make this investment. And lastly, as noted, the storytelling is a really important piece to get people on board. That's seems to be where we're going with our future work, is leaning on these and other stories we've identified and highlighting those to get other communities on board. So that is from us in Wisconsin. I will pass it back to Anna.
Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for that great presentation and overview of what you all have been doing and what's up next. We're going to go back to the East Coast now to our folks at Baltimore Green Justice Workers. I invite Lynn and Kimberly if you want to come on screen, and we'll get your presentation slides right up.
Okay, Lynn, you're muted.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Pender, and I'm one of the co-founders of Baltimore Green Justice Workers Cooperative. And I have my fellow co-founder, Kimberly.
Hello, everyone.
And we are really excited about this opportunity to present today, and are so gracious for the support that we've received from Clean Energy Group. You can move to the next slide, please. So, Baltimore Green Justice Workers Cooperative, we were launched in December of 2022. And it was really in the spirit of collective work and responsibility and cooperative economics. And we are a nonprofit. We provide education and skills training that help adults jumpstart pathways into green careers, while at the same time helping residents build their climate resilience. In 2024, we partnered with about 11 other community-based organizations at the time to create a collaborative called the Clean, Green, Beautiful Baltimore Community Change Collaborative, CG2B3C. So when we were contacted in earlier this year by Clean Energy Group about this opportunity, we thought that this would be a great way to mesh the work that Kimberly Armstrong was doing as our new director of renewable energy initiative to really pull together some work around launching a clean energy incentive navigator hub in Baltimore. Our focus, we felt, was really on point. Next slide, please. Really on point with our vision as an organization to really provide opportunities for people, residents at the grassroots level who historically have lived or worked in marginalized and underserved communities to really have a hand in creating innovative, sustainable green solutions that help shift power dynamics by creating more beautiful, resilient, and thriving communities. And we saw this opportunity to partner in this initiative to do that. And so we pulled together our team. Of course, it was Kimberly, myself, but we were also really honored to have a climate change intern to work with us this semester, Febin Aby. And she did some amazing work that Kimberly will be talking about a little later. Next slide, please. We felt that it was important to start with the work that we were doing with CG2B3C. And just to give you some background, at the time we started this work, CG2B3C was composed of 12 organizations in addition to Baltimore Green Justice Workers Cooperative. And we are all nonprofits. Our aim is to work with residents in non-historically marginalized and underserved communities in Baltimore to address the adverse effects of climate change and to build community resilience. And we felt like for the work of this Navigator Hub initiative that it made sense to start working with these communities. And so we started that by doing a needs assessment. Kimberly, do you want to talk more about that? Next slide, please.
Sure, Lynn. Thanks for that background. So one of the things that we did initially was to go into the communities that we were already partnered with to do a basic survey. And one of the things that we found out in the communities is that we were dealing with a lot of older people, right, who were not really tech savvy. So we had a digital form, and then we also had a paper form. So what we did was we sent it out digitally to some of the organizations, but also when we went out to the community, when we went out to the communities, we actually had a paper form that they could fill out. And the intern, what she did was she helped us to digitalize it, right? So she created this great form. So these are some of the statistics, and she took this the form and the data that we have, and she created a data form. You can move to the next slide. So this is one of the presentations that we did at Hilltop 4100, which is one of our collaborative partner organizations. And we actually were going out into the community, talking about solar and battery storage, but also talking about some of the incentives that we have here in Maryland that some people could apply for if they were interested. But also in the survey, what we did was we asked people, what did they know about solar, what they didn't know about solar, if they were interested, and how to go about actually attaining or looking into some of the resources that could maybe help them to go solar. So this is what we did in like maybe about 4 or 5 different communities that we partner with, and this was just one community association organization that we did this presentation for. You can go to the next slide. So this is the form that our intern helped us to develop. So you can see this was in the Oliver neighborhood community and how much people were interested in. and she developed the whole digitalized form, and you can see from high to low. So that goes into the the blue, which a lot more people were interested in learning about solar and battery storage, and who may be like on the fence. And then some people, talk about, I'm not really that interested. So it gave us a great idea in different communities how people were interested. You can go to the next slide. So we did the same thing in Hilltop 4100. So we did this in several different communities, and most of them, as I mentioned earlier, we had some older people, and some older people are not as comfortable with technology. So she helped us to digitalize this and gather and group the data up so that we could have a better sense and a better look at how we want to proceed moving forward with like some of the other initiatives that we had. Next slide. So this is Langston Hughes, which is in Park Heights. Langston Hughes is also one of our community partners, but also Langston Hughes is also a becoming resiliency hub as well. So they provide a lot of different kind of resources. They have education. They're becoming a resource hub. They're in the process of getting solar, at their location. So this is another institute where though it provides also they also did like a solar 101 as well training. So it was not just us going out into the community, but we started with us, but now it's evolving into some of our community partners starting to do the solar 101s on their own. So that's kind of like helping us. How do we expand our horizon and our capital, right? So it's not always just us, but how it is that we educate other people in the community to do what it is that we're doing, because we all have limited capacity. Next slide. So this is one of the things that we also created was the Clean Energy Incentive Navigator Hub. And so when I was doing some of the things out in the community, looking at the purpose of the Navigator Hub was to expand the access to resilient clean energy, raise the awareness of solar and battery storage, connecting the community to grants and incentives. So here in Maryland, we have the Maryland Energy Administration, who has a wealth of information on their website. So linking them to that website so that they can look at things like what incentives they have in going solar, and also educating people that residential solar incentives are going to be going away by the end of this year. However, on the commercial side, it won't be going away until next year. So just giving some people some background and education. Also, from time to time, Maryland Energy Administration may have some resources and some funds for battery storage. So always, like to point people to where the capital may be, or where you can go and find resources about some of the things you want to do around renewable energy. So that goes into, supporting the local initiative, innovations and leadership, and educating on the role of resiliency hubs and community safety. Next slide. So one of the things that we also started doing at the Navigator Hub was we did lunch and learns, because some people, could come. We did it virtually, and we also did in person. So people could join us online while they're having lunch. And I developed a whole presentation talking about Solar 101, giving them a background of what solar is, how it works, some of the equipments, the terminology, as well as battery storage and some of the incentives.
Okay, I think Kimberly might be frozen. Lynn, are you able to hop in?
Sure. We were really excited about this opportunity because it gave us the capacity to actually open a clean energy incentive navigator hub. So as Kimberly was talking, we actually had a designated physical space where people could come out and join her for these lunch and learns and happy hour sessions, and also via Zoom if they weren't able to come in person. Next slide. So here is some photo highlights. Here are some photo highlights of some of those lunch and learn and happy hour sessions that Kimberly led. Next slide. And it's always good to get feedback from other people. Sometimes we do things that we don't always understand how it impacts. And so the climate change intern, Febin, that worked with us this semester, actually put together this wonderful zine. And one part of the zine talked about how she witnessed Kimberly interacting with CG2B3C members, organizations, and reps at the hub. And that was wonderful. And I think one thing that stood out for me here, Febin wrote, BGJWC is a funded clean energy incentive navigator hub with the Clean Energy Group, which I didn't fully understand until I saw how many families rely on it. People come into the office with questions about solar rebates, bill relief, home upgrades, things that are usually complicated and inaccessible. Miss Kimberly's mindful training and expertise breaks it down step by step, helping people make more energy efficient homes. What I notice is that this isn't just an environmental program, it's an empowerment program. And so, when I saw that, I had said to Kimberly, I want to include that in our presentation because it just gives a better representation in words than what we could ever say. Next slide. In addition to doing the actual needs assessment to get a better understanding of what our CG2B3C partners knew about solar power and solar power battery storage, in addition to engaging them in the happy hour sessions and the lunch and learn sessions, we also had a number of deliverables that we were able to produce as part of this initiative. Some of those Kimberly mentioned when in her talk, when she talked about some of the Solar 101 presentations that she did and some of the info sheets that she did around the lunch and learns. Another set of deliverables that we're currently working on are a series of white papers that really provide an approach on not community, but just solar power and solar power storage from a community perspective. And so we have a series of white papers that we're working on. We have our first draft completed with the Community Law Center, which is going to provide a white paper detailing the legalities of solar power and energy storage in Baltimore City. Then we're working with another CG2B3C partner, Plantation Park Heights Urban Farm, to develop an outline and concept for a white paper about solar power and or battery storage use at urban farms. We are in conversation with a third CG2B3C partner, Network for Developing Conscious Communities, to discuss the concept of writing a white paper about solar power co-ops. And then lastly, we're in conversation with a fourth CG2B3C partner, Maryland Justice Project, to talk about the concept of writing a white paper about creating solar workforce development opportunities for returning citizens. Next slide, please. Another type of deliverable that we were able to create, because BGJWC has something called the Baltimore Green Jobs Academy that not only provides skill training to adults who are looking to jumpstart green career pathways, but we also partner with a local church in the Enoch Pratt to run a GED program. And so we were trying to think creatively about how we can infuse this conversation about solar power and solar battery storage into conversations where people would not necessarily get it, but they may have an interest. And so we thought about how we might incorporate this into the curricula of our GED program. So we worked with, in partnership with an organization here in Maryland, Elevated Educational Consulting Group, to put together a series of ready to use solar power and solar storage activities and lessons that pair science, math competencies, and social studies and reasoning through language arts competencies for ABE GED learners. And these are sets of lesson activities that are readily available to ABE GED instructors who teach adult learners. Next slide, please. So you put all of this together, and we're excited about our next. We're excited about hosting more lunch and learns and happy hour sessions in the new year. We're excited about the opportunity to continue taking this conversation into the streets, coordinating with more of our CG2B3C partners to attend their neighborhood sessions, to really talk hands-on with residents about these opportunities, incentives, although some of the incentives are sunsetting out at the end of this year. We're hopeful to be able to work with Clean Energy Group and the Maryland Energy Administration to identify other types of resources that would be supportive of residents who are interested in solar, and then also completing the white paper series. And lastly, looking for additional funding opportunities that can help us extend this work. Next slide, please. And, it puts together for us the question, why are we doing this? And, again, our climate change intern, Febin, I think she summed it up for us more than we could. And this is another page out of the zine that she created for the organization. We do this work because it's something that's important to us. It's something that helps us really be able to solve a problem that's impacting all of us, but it allows us to do it in a way that makes sense for us. And so we're so grateful to Clean Energy Group for this opportunity. Next slide. Thank you. And hopefully Kimberly will be able to log back on and join us.
Yes, thank you so much, Lynn. I feel the same. I hope Kimberly is able to rejoin us for the Q&A, but thank you for being flexible and taking over the slides there when we had a couple technical difficulties. I will go ahead and pass it over to our Green Building United team. They're based a couple hours north of Baltimore in Philadelphia. We'll get their slides up there and they can go ahead and present about what they've done this year.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We are Green Building United, a member-based nonprofit located in Philadelphia, and we serve Philadelphia, Lehigh Valley, the surrounding Collier counties, and Wilmington, Delaware. And we're trying to help advance an equitable transition to a climate-friendly and healthy built environment through our three main buckets of work, which are education, advocacy, and strategic initiatives. And the Clean Energy Navigator program really kind of fit with what we are doing with the launch of our Better Buildings Hub. So we're excited to talk a little bit about that. On the next slide, you'll see the program team here today. First, we have LeBaron Leonard Palmer, who is the Director of Sustainable Building Strategies and has worked really hard this past year to launch our Better Buildings Hub, which is where the Clean Energy Navigator program is housed in Philadelphia. Then there's me. I'm Maya Bornstein, a program manager here at Green Building United, mainly focused on climate-ready capital projects, which is how I learned about the Clean Energy Group, talking to community-based organizations about becoming recognized resiliency centers and having clean energy backup options. And last but certainly not least is Isabel Coupe, another program manager on our team, who does a little bit of everything, but is known for her help with the Better Buildings Hub, our BEP program with the city, and our 2030 district program. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to LeBaron to introduce the hub.
Next slide. Thank you. Again, my name's LeBaron Leonard Palmer. I am considered the hub guy or director of the Better Buildings Hub. The Better Buildings Hub has been developed as a one-stop resource center to help buildings become more energy efficient, climate ready, and people-centered in the greater Philadelphia region. Next slide, please. So the goal of the Better Buildings Hub, like other energy hubs around the country, is to become a reliable and flexible resource that helps buildings be better for occupants, owners, and their environment in the greater Philadelphia region. Not only for Philadelphia city and county, but the surrounding areas as well, which Maya mentioned. A big part of that is to connect folks with funding opportunities at the federal, state, and local level. Again, part of that is being flexible, since there are things that are in flux. You have some dates that are closing with a lot of programs, newer ones on the state side, just a place where everyone can get all this information in one place. Another portion is to support small businesses, nonprofits, building operators is very important, affordable housing providers, and communities most impacted by climate challenges. Another major point of the Better Buildings Hub, which is connected to the Clean Energy Navigator, is to provide easy to understand education and practical tools and numerous resources, such as the ones that came out of this Clean Energy Navigator grant, which is housed on the Better Buildings Hub website, which we're happy to have. Next slide. I will pass it along to Isabel.
Yeah, thank you, LeBaron. So, as a connector, the Better Buildings Hub is in network with groups like resource providers, community-based organizations, small businesses, and government institutions. And we've spent the last few months developing these clean energy resources for these groups here in Southeast PA. But before developing any of these, we took a look at what help is out there for people right now interested in solar and other clean energy technologies. We built off of feedback that we had collected the year prior when we were first creating the Better Buildings Hub and finding LeBaron to kind of lead this work. Then we collected information this past year, through a survey more specifically tailored around solar and battery storage. We also had one-on-one conversation with partners at the City of Philadelphia, who does a lot of emergency management within the city. Um, and other existing solar resource providers like the PA Solar Center that we have here in our state. And what they said is that a lot of the people they support need not just more information, but clearer information on things like financing models that are actually allowed and available and legal in the state of Pennsylvania. There were also some concerns about batteries and where they're physically stored because a lot of the region is like a tight urban fabric and city, so there's not always storage for large battery installations. And as always, people like more project examples. Sometimes they want things that are more complex, like pro formas, where they explain like all the financial details of how things are funded. But sometimes they just want some information about like solar installers, existing installations that exist. And from there, we decided to create a host of resources. And we can go to the next slide to kind of take a look at those. So we developed a clean energy story library, a guide on becoming a resiliency center, and some frequently asked question responses that were coming up a lot for solar from both the people who responded to the survey and also for some of the resource providers that we heard back from. And we'll go to the next slide. So here we can see a screenshot of our clean energy library that will hopefully be on our website that's linked in the chat one day. And you can see some of these project details, installers, and designers for specific projects. This is an example project here in our city. And we'll also see some information about who the resource providers that could help with more clean energy projects. So if you're interested in doing a solar project like this Sono Yard solar project, who should you go to for assistance? And companies who may also offer those clean energy installation services, whether you're interested in like EV installation, solar installation, and monitoring, things like that. So I'm now going to pass the mic to Maya, who will discuss the other resources that we've created as part of this program.
Great. The next deliverable we had was a infographic and flyer for community members about what is a resiliency center, how to become one, and what are the steps that you need to take to be one. And the goal was to promote renewable backup power at places who were already serving their communities. We've seen this year flooding, storms, with extreme heat and extreme cold, as well as like hazardous fires. And we're working with community-based organizations that were taking people in during these extreme weather events. So we thought that they would be great candidates to be a resiliency center, but we don't have many of those formalized in Philadelphia. And our initial research was showing that there was a gap of where to go and who to turn to in those cases. And the goal also of this infographic is to support energy independence during grid outages and demonstrate a community model for clean energy adoption in our resiliency centers. And on our next slide, we have our last resource, which is our solar frequently asked questions. And here you can see the contents, and each section has a whole bunch of questions. So this answers questions about how to get involved in solar from getting started, like how do you know if you're eligible for solar, how many panels should you put on your building, to cost and financing, technical and resiliency, what policy and incentives are out there, and then looking deeper into some of the installation and case studies that Isabel was talking about. And then this guide is on our website, and eventually we're hoping to embed it so that people can continue to submit questions, and we'll continuously like live update it. And they'll just have a drop-down menu and be able to see all of the questions that exist. Awesome. And our last kind of resource slash part of this program is our office hours and appointments. So interested parties are now able to book an appointment with Better Buildings Hub staff to discuss opportunities for clean energy in their project on our website. And so they can easily go to our website, and if they want to meet with any of our staff, get that one-on-one tailored technical support. And then we can connect them with more resources of how to start on their clean energy journey. And we also will be hosting a bunch of drop-in office hours so that if people feel a little intimidated to make a one-on-one appointment with us, they can just drop in to check in about their project or ask any questions they might have or just get to know us. And those are our resources. I'll hand it back to Lavera to talk about what's next.
Sure. Sure. So what's next? And part of this is actually connected to the Better Buildings Hub website as well, because these both are iterative processes. Right? So what's next? Refine and expand resources, continue updating solar and battery storage materials as incentives change at various levels and partner feedback comes in. Continue engagement, which is incredibly important. So regularly engaging with partners to keep materials accurate and up to date and grounded in real world practice for everyone involved. Inform future funding. Use what we learn to identify gaps in existing funding and shape the next phase of funding requests. And strengthen technical assistance, which is incredibly important as well. Develop tools based on the most common questions that we're receiving at events, webinars, just walking around the street, people who know us that are doing our work and have random questions. We field information in any and every way possible for the work that we do. So next slide. So just to finish things off, I want to thank everyone for attending and listening to us. It's been great to listen to others. We have our email information here that I'm sure will be posted. And that is it for us at Green Building United. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, LeBaron, as well as Maya and Isabel for your presentation here. We are going to go out farther to the west this time, over to Boulder, Colorado, and our partners here at Empower Our Future. Before I hand over the mic to them, I just want to remind folks that the Q&A box is open and available. We're doing well on time. This is technically a 90-minute webinar, so we will be doing Q&A and have a lot of time for that after Empower Our Future's presentation, rather. We do have some questions that we gathered in advance, but always happy to answer your questions if you submit them in the Q&A bar on Zoom. I will pass it over to Mary, and I believe Jim and Scott will also be joining the panelist pictures soon.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And I just wanted to say what a pleasure it is to hear from the other cohorts. Really cool and impressive work everybody's been doing. So Empower Our Future is a Boulder-based nonprofit. And when we got the CEG grant, we created this community resilience team. Next slide, please. You will get some more information about Jim and Scott, i.e. their fuller bios. I put Scott's into the chat, so hopefully that'll get added and Jim will add his. But essentially, we come from varied backgrounds to approach this issue of community resilience here in Boulder. Next slide. And as everybody knows, the grant was, of course, designed to provide information to the community about the value of solar and storage. We also, of course, really hope to locate a community location that might be an optimal resilience hub. We also felt it was super important to understand the funding options and different vendors. Next slide. So just the way we thought about this was that, like, first we decided to limit our physical geographic area to Boulder County. We thought that it made sense to do both sort of top down and bottom up, knowing that, of course, we're ultimately interested in interacting with the community, especially disproportionately impacted communities. But we also really wanted to understand where, like, the state was. There's a Colorado Resiliency Office, so we were in touch with them. We spoke with the Boulder Climate Initiatives Department. The City of Boulder Policy Advisor was very helpful in terms of information about communities that might benefit. Again, we met with community umbrella groups and community serving groups and nonprofits, business community, and then more targeted, disproportionately impacted communities. Next slide. So in terms of those business connections, we really wanted to understand some of the technical components of what a resilience hub would involve. And thus, we're really trying to cultivate relationships within the solar and battery business community. We also wanted to understand financial analysis and the cost savings of a potential solar and battery system. We wanted to understand how the sales process works. So again, we put Namaste is a local solar installer here in Boulder and beyond. And we had some great conversations with them. And of course, we continued to look for financing, given that, as everyone knows, this is a uniquely challenging time to be promoting something like solar and storage, in spite of how desperately we need tons more of it. Anyway, among the financing options that happen to appear here in our area late summer was from Boulder County's Office of Sustainability, Climate Action, and Resilience, also known as OSCAR. Next slide. So I'll come back to OSCAR in a minute. In connecting with communities, we again also hope to build partnerships with groups like the Colorado Jewish Climate Action and others. Green Faith is one of those umbrella organizations that reaches out to houses of faith who are interested in going green. We reached out to a number of disproportionately impacted community serving groups um, with varying levels of success. We found that in some instances, there were groups that honestly just were reluctant to engage with us, which is not, it is what it is. We hope that over time we'll build relationships with some of those groups, and can understand that they don't necessarily want to partner with somebody that they don't know right away. So that was one of the lessons we learned. Interestingly, we met with a woman that we'd actually heard about along the way as we were meeting different groups. And this woman is part of the Mapleton Home Association. Her name is Isabel Sanchez. That picture there is a photo from their block party. And we were invited by Isabel to attend the block party. Sorry, I'm not sure if I made that clear. The woman on the left is Isabel. That's her granddaughter singing a song. One of the residents of the Mapleton Home Association is there at a table where I'm barely visible and Jim Gilbert is sadly cut off. But we were there talking to residents about what solar and storage might mean for their community. Next slide, please. So, in terms of really, again, we just feel like it was serendipitous, this connection with Isabel Sanchez at the Mapleton Home Association. In addition to being the HOA leader there, she is also an emergency preparedness trainer. And she's done a lot of work with the area's manufactured housing community. And so as we started having conversations with Isabel, it was just super exciting because she just got it. She understood what we were talking about in terms of solar and storage, and also how precarious at least the people in her manufactured housing neighborhood felt. And so after a couple conversations with Isabel, she suggested that we apply for this Oscar equity grant that was announced in August to pursue both individual resilience and community resilience for the Mapleton Home Association. Next slide. And I guess I should have said drum roll. We're just over the moon about the fact that our grant application was accepted, and we do not yet know. I mean, there's a few logistics. The money's not in the bank, but it looks like that we will receive over $600,000 in funding to provide both individual resilience to the community by way of individual solar panels for each of the mobile home residents, as well as a backup battery and a couple different pieces of equipment that we can talk about more specifically in the Q&A if that's of interest to people. As well as those individual resilience kits, we are looking at putting solar on the only building within the community that would be approved for solar, which is their laundry facility. So we'll put the solar and the storage on that building. We're going to install a semi-permanent building like a yurt because they literally do not have a community center within their community. That building will act as their community center. It'll be powered by the solar and the storage. We imagine that 90% of the, maybe 95% of the time, it will just act in whatever way the community chooses to use it as maybe a gathering place where it'll be powered. Um, who knows? They could have their HOA meetings there now, since previously they've had to actually gather off-site. We know they get food delivered there throughout the year, and a lot of times that was really challenging for residents. If the weather was freezing or really hot or heavily raining or snowing, people had to wait outside to get the food delivery. Now they have a place to be. And of course, in the occasions of power outages, this building will be a known safe place within their community that they will all know about and be able to go to. Next slide. So, just as I start to head towards the wrap up here, our 2026 focus will, of course, be realizing the Community Energy Resilience Grant mission at the Manufactured Housing Association, Mapleton Home Association. We've already started meeting with the city, county, and we'll be looking at state resources to see how we can hopefully leverage those in this pilot. Really, we're viewing this project as a pilot that we hope can be scaled. We've begun conversations with vendors, started planning workflows. We expect to set up an oversight panel of folks who want to just kind of keep tabs on what we're doing and also understand and be helpful in terms of guiding us through the process. We also are really fully committed to providing regular community updates about the project progress. We want to be really clear and candid about when we're doing stuff that's working, but also when we recognize that something isn't working and what we're learning along the way. Next slide, please. So, while we, of course, will be spending a whole lot of time on fulfilling this grant, we feel like the work we started will also need to be cultivated, and we will figure out how to sort of divide our time, having nothing to do with the grant, but trying to continue the CEG work in terms of where are there other optimal resilience hub locations? What are the vendor partners that would make sense to be connecting with? What financial resources might start to become available? It does seem that there's a lot of private funding and state funding that is being reconfigured to become available, and hopefully that will continue. One of the things we'd really love to develop is a map of Boulder County that includes the existing city and county emergency resilience hubs. These would be the officially created hubs that the city and county maintain. We'd like to know where those are, but then we also would love to have on our map where are there lower income and disproportionately impacted communities, high wildfire risk locations, flood risk areas. By having all of this on a map, we would better be able to start to really see where Resilience Hub development would make the most sense. We tend to look at the New Orleans Lighthouse Project as a really great example and would love to see, in a few years from now, Boulder County having a grid of Resilience Hub spread throughout. And again, hopefully this Mapleton Home Association pilot program will be a great way for us to learn a lot, show people how it can work and be beneficial, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Last slide. So our website, empowerourfuture.org/energy-resilience, has more information and resources, including those that we developed with Clean Energy Group. We hope to stay in touch with CEG and this cohort to continue to learn from each other's experiences. And just if there's anybody out there in the Boulder County area who knows of potential resilience hub locations, or you want to learn more about the project, have a trusted vendor to recommend, so on and so forth, we'd love to hear from you. And again, I just want to make a shout out to CEG and Anna Adamsson in particular, just because she was such a terrific person to check in with on a regular basis. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you. That's the best introduction to our Q&A that I could ask for here. I will ask the rest of our panelists to come on camera so that we can have you all here today. We have a full lineup of folks here ready to ask or answer rather everyone's questions. Like I said, this is a 90-minute webinar, so we will cut things off in just about 19 minutes at 3:30 Eastern, 3:30 Eastern, or other times, depending on your time zone. The first question I have, I'm going to pose to everyone. If a community organization is interested in emulating some of the steps that you all did this year, but they only have the capacity to do one thing, what's one takeaway from this program, whether it's the needs assessment, resource development, connecting one-on-one with community members, whatever it is, what's one thing that you would recommend for that organization to do next year to get started on in January? And this is maybe going to require some thought, so I'll let you all choose who wants to go off mute first, who has an idea. Go ahead, Mary.
I think probably the biggest lesson we learned and happily learned early on was that whatever you are bringing to the process in terms of your ideas about solutions, especially if you are attempting to collaborate with a community that you might not necessarily be a part of, no matter how pure your instincts and your intentions are, none of that matters without that community's input. It's absolutely imperative that those folks are brought into the process and you hear from them and you take their input.
That is a great response. Go ahead, Garrison.
Yeah, I would say definitely the needs assessment for sure. You know, especially as you're starting to like seek out fundraising and seek out like funding opportunities. One thing they're going to want to know, to Mary's point, is that not only you're in communication with the community, but also that it's something that they want. It's not a matter of if you build it, they will come. It's really a matter of asking what they want and then build it. And so that needs assessment is huge because it does a lot of legwork, but then it also helps you establish those relationships and starting to find out, what resources already exist and sort of who you can bring in to sort of lean on.
Absolutely. Anybody want to add any other Navigator hubs want to add anything? Great. So we have a question coming in from the chat. They are an affordable housing nonprofit interested in piloting 2 resilience micro hubs. They have a series of questions that really gets in the weeds about what resilience hubs are and how to build them, how to staff them in the event of an outage, when they should be open to the public, that sort of thing. Autumn, I just want to create an open offer. Let's connect via email after the fact. This really gets in the weeds of it. I don't know if our Navigator programs have quite ventured that far into resilience hub development yet. Mary, as you heard from her presentation, her, Scott, and Jim, and other folks from Empower Our Future are going to be really diving into those questions come the new year. But really, the point of this program was to talk more broadly about resilience hubs, the benefits of solar plus storage, and provide information to folks who are interested across the community, and not getting so nitty gritty in the details. But we at Clean Energy Group, we have supported bunches of organizations building resilience, so I'd be happy to follow up with you individually on your questions. The next question I have for the group, and maybe for Garrison specifically, is you all had created a couple videos about energy efficiency for folks and how that complements solar, energy storage, community solar. Can you speak more to how energy efficiency is a benefit to communities and how it complements solar and community solar, how you can talk about those things together as complementary?
Totally. Yeah. So, um, I think it's really important to paint the larger picture, right? Like, starting off with just think about your energy bill, right? Like, is your energy bill too high? Why? You're spending too much energy, right? Well, why are you spending too much energy? Well, I have to run, my AC unit all the time. Well, why do you have to run your AC unit? Because if I turn it off, it gets like warm, right? Well, why is it getting warm? Because the air's not staying in your home, and then from there you can sort of have that conversation of like, okay, well, how is the air leaving your home? And you can point out, the fact that maybe your windows are there's it's not flush to the windowsill, right? You can point out maybe there's a space under your door jamb where air is leaking out. You can point out like all these different points where, you could just save small bits of money. Um, like, yeah, you can save small bits of money for your like in relation to energy bills. So really walking people through that that process, that critical thinking process of like, if A leads to B, then B leads to C and C leads to D and kind of proving it that way, right? But then you also can provide like discussion around community solar and clean energy as like kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Because the energy efficiency will take your energy bill and it brings it down, right? But then you're still pulling energy from the grid. Well, now, with solar, now that's the other side of that coin where you're creating your own electricity to use. And so you're no longer, not only are you like the energy that you're using within your home, you're keeping it in your home, right? But you're also like creating your own or generating your own energy on site and no longer being like having to depend on the grid nearly as much. So, say walk people through that entire process, right? Just step by step, showing them that bigger picture, and then really kind of showing them two sides of that energy coin.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Adding on to that, how you framed it of, hey, energy costs are high, and this is how we can help combat that. I'm curious from the other Navigator hubs, or again from you, Garrison, from anyone, what you wish folks would know about solar and energy storage based on how you've worked with communities this year and your work in the past. Lynn and Kimberly, I know that your survey had asked folks about maintenance costs. Sometimes that can be kind of a surprise to folks. They think about the upfront cost of a system, but not always how much it would keep to last over its lifetime. So I'm curious if folks have any takeaways, something that they wish more folks would know.
Yeah, so a lot of it really is around education, so I explain it to people when they talk about the cost is that, the system size is really built on how much energy that you use. So for instance, me and my neighbor, we could have the same size house. However, the system is built off of your kilowatt usage. So just educating them about, the system size and how much it may cost a kilowatt. And your system size may be smaller or bigger than mine. Also offset, how to offset some of your energy usage. And just, what I have solar on my home. So getting solar for me was like also kind of gave me awareness. Like I know some of you all probably grew up in a house where your parents said, turn them lights off, right? You don't pay that kind of thing attention, but it kind of made me smarter, right? And looking at when I'm using energy, how I'm using energy. And just because I have solar, I'm a little bit more aware and conservative. So a lot of the things that we learned in the survey was people had a lot of questions about how much did it cost? How was the system size developed? What kind of incentives that we had and things of that nature.
Great. Would anyone like to add to that?
I'm I would add that since beginning of Philadelphia that folks need to know is possible outside of specific neighborhoods, right? You see in many neighborhoods in Philadelphia, they're tied to the gentrifying neighborhoods, or those folks that they think can pay for these types of things, or are able to put more money up front to have these solar panels installed, not being aware that there are programs and initiatives that could help them along the way make that possible in their neighborhoods. So it's one of those things where it's like the chicken or the egg, right? You have to see it actually happen in your neighborhood, or even with some of the resources that we provide, given a visual of, hey, this is a case study of where it happened, and it may be a lot closer than you think. So it's acknowledging the possibility, but also the reticence behind thinking that this is a resource for a certain set of the population as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And also, educating people about the different types of financing that you can use, right? I know we have a lot of PPAs, which is a power purchasing agreement, where you don't have to have an upfront cost. The only thing is that you don't get the solar rec credits, right? However, if I'm still benefiting from lowering my energy costs, I may not be all that concerned or interested, right, in getting the SRECs, right? So it'd be beneficial for me to have solar to reduce my energy costs, but not have any upfront money, right? So just educating them about those kind of things, about the different types of financing that you can use, and sometimes it's not, a whole bunch of upfront costs, those kind of things.
Great, thank you so much. Now we have a somewhat loaded question, but one I think that a lot of us have spent a lot of time thinking about. We have a question about if you could create an ideal grant program to come out of a state energy offense for community resilience hubs, what would you look for? And I'll just, tee up the bat a little bit. You could think about pre-development support. You could think about implementation funding. You could think about community resilience hubs. You could think about Solar for All, even as an example here, and how that was supposed to be implemented and is on pause for right now. So a lot of different ways that folks can take this, and I'm definitely looking forward to different answers. As you give your answer, maybe share what state you're in or what region, just to give a bit of context for folks hearing your answers. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Great question. Um, as I think many people here know, the commercial credits for solar that non-commercial entities, schools, nonprofits, governments can tap into through direct pay, that is being phased out. I'd say it's first of all, we need to know it exists. So part of my answer is to say, like, it'd be great for states to leverage the funding that does exist through what we generally describe to our community as direct pay, because our community are those public entities that tap into those credits. And we try not to talk about tax credits too much when we engage those entities because they're saying we don't pay taxes. What I would say is it'd be great to have support for those entities that would be great candidates for resilience hubs to tap into those credits. So it could be, for starters, there's some really great examples. We're in Wisconsin. There's some really great examples in our surrounding states. We're a bit of an island surrounded by Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois that are all taking great steps where their states are leading in providing tax filing assistance for those entities, because you basically have federal funding sitting out there that public entities could tap into. You're talking about anywhere from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. There's a school that's going to be likely the largest net zero high school, I think, or net zero school in Wisconsin. It's not in the most progressive part of the state even, or the wealthiest, but it's just because of innovative managers taking advantage of that. So solar is definitely something that could be tapped into if people are smart, getting the domestic panels installed soon and moving those projects along. But we know battery storage credits will exist for some time. Once again, they'll have to navigate some limitations around FIAC, but like it'd be great to have states supporting that. Maybe states could bulk buy those even those batteries to make sure that they're safe and get reduced costs. So it'd be great to see that, and then partner that with that federal funding, and it would make sure that funding goes as far as possible. So it just so happens we we are working on getting Wisconsin not to be an island. So that's something we are working on right now, and I hope some states, I imagine Colorado has a navigator like that. I don't know about the other states out there if you all have those navigators, but that's my long answer to that question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nick. All the states are doing what they can and just hoping for an upward trajectory from everyone here. Go ahead, Lynn.
Thanks. I think this is a wonderful question, and I would really recommend that the state would really reach out to the neighborhood and community associations in the different jurisdictions to ask this question of them. This is somewhat of like a needs assessment opportunity to really be able to hear from the people that you want to serve to help them determine and define what community resilience looks like. Because sometimes we paint it as a one size fit all, and it looks very different for many different communities. So use this question as an opportunity to get a better understanding of what we could imagine for our counties and cities in the state and how it might look differently in each jurisdiction.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So we only have a couple minutes left of today's webinar. So I have one more question for you all. And then whoever, if anybody else wants to add to this question about state grant programs, feel free to either continue answering that one or answer this new one. As we head into 2026, obviously it's another year where we anticipate, as Nick had alluded to, the investment tax credit is starting to get phased out, new requirements put on that, generally less funding than a couple years ago for solar plus storage projects at all levels. But still, we persist, communities continue to build up and do what we can to support each other at these times and continue to work towards community resilience. So I'd love to hear from some of you, all of you, about what brings you optimism as you think towards this new year and this another year of building together. Not all at once.
I'll jump in. I think what keeps me optimistic about this work is the work itself, the opportunity to connect in with my neighbors and with other folks that are, doing this work, and for other folks that may not be doing the work, but are really excited to know that we are here to be able to help them think about what that work might look like. And so it's the hope is the opportunity for us to do just what we're doing, and so that's what keeps me going, and the excitement and the appreciation for residents that we're taking the time to hear from them.
Amazing. Go ahead, Scott. I know you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I'm Scott from the Boulder crew. Two things actually. One is this group, and coordinated through the clean energy group. Like, I'm so impressed with what folks have done around the country. The energy that you guys just gave me this morning is fantastic, right? Like, that's one of the things that totally keeps me going is watching and listening and learning to really smart people get out there and do stuff. So thank you, Anna and Clean Energy Group, for doing like coordinating, and thank you everybody for such awesome presentations. And then the other thing is, like, when we went out to the community and talked to probably like 25 different community organizations, we just asked, like, a couple of folks here had like some great questions on like just helping people discover their basic pain points and their basic needs beyond the like big picture of solar and storage, right? Like, that's all wonderful, but there's some really basic stuff that people can solve pretty easily without a big production. One of the things that we came across several times was the internet goes out because the power goes out for, an hour here and an hour there. And Jim was like, "Hey, we can just get people a backup battery for their cable modem for $100, and it provides 3-4 hours of continuously available backup." So there's a lot of through the discussions, you find the real pain points, and there's a lot of simple solutions that relieve anxiety and just improve people's lives a little bit here and there. And we can continue doing that. So that's all pretty exciting to me.
I am muted. I want all the optimism I can get going to the new year. I know we have 1 minute left. Let's hear from Garrison. Maybe one other person get ready to share. Want more optimism.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I would say like the fact that you just asked the question sort of what would the ideal grant look like, right? And like, we're thinking about that, but we're not the only ones. There are policymakers, there are people on the state level, there are people, in foundations and different nonprofits who are all thinking about like how can we make solar and clean energy more accessible. And I think despite, some of the hiccups that we've seen on the federal level, like ultimately there are way too many people who care way too much about this like subject to just sort of let it fizzle and let it die. And so like even collective bargaining on like different solar panels for projects, right? Like these are all solutions that are starting to come together. And so I think like where there's a will, there's a way, and there's a huge will. So the way will reveal itself in time.
Amazing. One more? Go for it, Jim.
I'm going to say that this is all about the people to begin with. And I think, this meeting here is celebrating that. All of our individual meetings that we've had with community members, when you establish that connection, um, we establish the people connection. And then we learn from each other, and we also learn that we all want to pitch in to get to Garrison's point. I think there's a lot of people out there who want to pitch in and help any way they can, and so let's keep it moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. I completely agree. It's all about the people. And as Garrison said, it's not just the folks on this call. There are a lot of folks working on this on all levels. So there's a lot to be optimistic for, a lot to be hopeful for going into the new year, another year of this work. Sorry, everyone, for going over by 1 minute, but thank you all for your time here today. A special thank you to all of our Navigator programs, not only for giving their presentations today, but also for all of their hard work over the year, building resilience, building awareness about solar plus storage, learning from their communities about their interests as well and moving forward on this just transition. So thank you all again for a wonderful webinar. Thank you for a wonderful 2025 and onwards and upwards.
Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
everyone.
Anna.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks all.